Hello Internet, I'm VZ and welcome to this, the very first episode of I Like to Video Games, the show where I like video games. Today, for this debut episode, I'm going to be reviewing Rock of Ages. Yeah, I know it's been out for a while, but it only came out a couple of months ago on the PSN. After hearing people talk about this game and how it's been discussed on other shows, I thought this looked like exactly the kind of game I could get behind. So without further ado, let's take a look at Rock of Ages. Oh, and if you're suddenly feeling sort of claustrophobic, yeah, I'm kind of working with some old equipment here. So, okay, looking at these opening screens, some familiar names, and... Whoa, wait a minute. Is that a reference to Mystery Science Theater 3000? Oh, man. I think I'm gonna have a good time with this game. Oh yeah, great time indeed. I've heard lots of people compare this game's visual style and sense of humor with Monty Python, and now I have a first-hand experience of it. And speaking as somebody who's watched the Terry Gilliam Personal Best DVD more than once, and survived the nightmares, I gotta say, it's pretty much there. Visual style? Check. Delightful absurdist sense of humor? Check. And, what's going on over here in Thermopylae? Okay, there's a guy with a 1 on his head, and more guys. There's 16, and still going. Counting up to 300. Wait a minute.
Hey! This is Spawn!
Well, I should have seen this coming. Yeah. There are a lot of these self-referential and pop culture aware cutscenes, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. There are some really good ones, and I won't spoil any more of them, but my personal favorite involves Da Vinci. So, the basics of Rock of Ages come from an array of classic mechanics. There is your ball of physics, a dose of racing, and a healthy smattering of tower defense in between. The object of the game is to roll your rock down the course, destroying as much stuff along the way as possible to try and smash through the enemy's castle gates at the end. If you do, you get to run over them and make a farting noise. Truly, gaming's Citizen Kane. In between rolls, each player has time to build up obstacles and other units to make life difficult for the other. It's a promising mix, to say the least, but I gotta say, the balance on how these mechanics interplay is kind of one-sided. It all fits together nicely, but your tower defense stuff is severely underpowered. You can only build in certain spots, and that often prevents the player from pulling off tactics that are necessary to make the mechanic worth it. The part of the game that comes through the most is the race aspect. For like the first 15 levels, I didn't see a single stone reduced to shards. Getting to the bottom isn't really a huge challenge or worry because falling off the side has no real consequences, it just sets you back a few seconds. The only time you actually get stopped up by the obstacles is on those rare levels that actually allow you to block stuff off, and give you enough different tools to properly mess with the other player. So the best strategy to go with is to try and knock the other person off the edge so many times that you pull ahead and don't fuck around when your rock is ready to roll.
Yeah, kinda like that.
That said, once one player has been established as the leader, I found it wasn't easy to change that. This leads to a certain level of what I call slow decay. You know how it is. It's like in Honeycomb Havoc from Mario Party 2. Everyone else is counting just as much as you are, and it would take somebody screwing up on a pretty serious level to change the result. The winner has already been determined, and you just have to sit there watching failure come closer and closer and closer and closer, which makes you more and more thankful for the retry button. So right now it's essentially a racing game. A racing game with some seriously overpowered AI. I mean, the tools you get in the tower defense stuff are cool, but during your build time you can hurl catapult rocks at the enemy. It's not a very useful tool, but if you've got nothing better to do, yeah. So normally, when I'm rolling and the enemy is rolling, nothing really weird is happening. Around level 5, I started getting nailed with catapult shots, almost always dead on, and the enemy is still rolling! How am I even supposed to compete with that? I can't hit the fucker until he's caught in a corner, and that's during my very limited free time. And why does it have to happen so gosh darn motherfucking often? So, turns out that it's not the computer multitasking like a crazy person, but actually these balloon dudes who call down the hellfire when I get near them. Good to know, especially because it works for me too. And I still can't beat this level, so I guess it's time to break a game. Balloons. Many, many balloons. The game won't let me put them right next to each other, which makes sense because it stops people like me from completely ruining the experience. But it's kind of sad, because I was picturing just a wall of these guys and like totally decimating the rock when it came down the way, but nope. Gotta lay him out like there's a zoning commission breathing down my neck. The important thing is, it actually worked. I beat the level, and only with balloons. At this point, my "this is more of a racing game" criticism does kind of break down. As the game goes on, you get more and more tools to use in the tower defense portion of the game, like the balloons, making it easier to dole out more punishment. Eventually, I managed to actually destroy a rock, and it was awesome! Everything really does come together in the last few levels, and the game shines when it's at full strength, but there were really only like 3 levels of this. Only 3 levels of the tower defense really coming into play, the aspect I was most looking forward to. I'll tell you what I wasn't looking forward to was the boss fights. At first, I didn't even think there would be boss fights, but there are, and I wonder how necessary they were.
The purpose of the boss fights should have been to mess around with the mechanics and push stuff to the extreme.
The only fight that really did that was when I had to launch my rock out of a cannon and nail Michelangelo's David right in the junk. Yeah, right in the wedding vegetables. I had a lot of fun with this one, but the other boss fights weren't nearly as interesting or fun to play. They just consisted of rolling and jumping unceremoniously into the boss's weak spot, whatever it may have been. When I thought about what could have been done with this game, and these boss fights in particular, I immediately landed on the battle with Goat from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, and Star-Lord from Twilight Princess. These are probably my 2 most favoritist boss fights of all time. That might change in a future video, I don't know, but off the top of my head, these are my faves. Huge action, fast-paced, rootin', pollutin', high, rolling fun. Pun intended. Those boss fights had you thinking faster and moving in ways you didn't even think possible in those games up until that point, which is something I think might have been beneficial in a game whose entire point is to build up speed and think on your feet, or roundness, as the case may be. Compare these to the dragon boss from Rock of Ages, and it's just sad in comparison. This boss fight was so frustratingly boring that I had to go and look at other people beating the boss on YouTube just to see if maybe I was doing it wrong. All in all, these boss fights are pretty lackluster, and easily my least favorite part of the game. Nutshots aside. Okay, so I finished the final boring boss. Took a while, and now it's time to check out the extra modes. First up, Obstacle Course. Basically just replaying the levels, only it's legitimately a race now. Towers are already set up, and you don't have to do any construction of your own. You have to win 2 times through each course before the enemy does. Not much else to it. So I'll move on. There's also a skee ball mode, oh so cleverly called Ski Boulder, which requires the player to bowl down the course, destroying targets, that's literally targets, no abstractions here, and try to get a score multiplier at the end. This mode was pretty fun, but it all paled in comparison to the time trials. Yeah, call me boring, whatever. In most racing or otherwise driving games I play, some of the most fun I've had is trying to pull off high-speed stunts or race against the clock mostly unhindered outside of normal gameplay. This game is certainly a unique way to experience that. These unorthodox but really interesting level layouts offer a... retry. A series of really cool ways to... retry. Shave those precious seconds off of... retry. Your time, resulting in either a bronze, silver, or gold medal... Okay, so maybe this isn't the best time to be doing this. So how do I feel about the game overall? Well, the way the game is constructed feels out of balance, and the bosses are mostly an exercise in boring. I really wish that they had fleshed out the tower defense a bit, and made the game more about trying to actually destroy the enemy rocks, or at least made that a separate game mode. I feel like there's some potential here not being used, but after all that, I still had a lot of fun with it. The concept is beautiful, it's nice to see games that are a few steps away from the usual rigmarole, and this game is many steps away. The art style, the music, the concept, it's all too interesting and fun to pass up. The game is kind of short, so you should have no trouble finishing it in about a weekend or so. I recommend this game to anybody who likes to laugh, and can stand to pull themselves away from poning noobs with an M4A/5T-64AL carbine with optional anti-lock brakes and a cup holder, so they can pwn some historical figures with a giant boulder instead. And that's the first episode. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. Now to think up an ending. Damn it.